Welcome in, welcome in. So let's get into it. Detroit Lions. Who's the best player in the Detroit Lions? Pro Football Focus narrowed this down. The top three guys: Aiden Hutchinson, Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't think that's really much of a debate. I think you can clearly say those are the three best players in the Detroit Lions. This article makes a case for Penei Sewell. This guy makes a case for Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think if you did a poll from the fans, most people would say Amon-Ra St. Brown. A lot of people just lean towards offensive players, wide receivers, just because they light up the stat sheets. They're getting all the touchdowns. They're the guys that you frequently see in the highlights. As you watch more and more football, though, you start to realize the value a guy like Penei Sewell has in a football team. This isn't new news, though. Left tackle's been a premium position for a long time in the NFL. Wish this mic would sit still. And left tackle's been a premium position in the NFL for a long time. I love that the Detroit Lions, when you're trying to turn around a franchise, a pick like Penei Sewell is the perfect turn of events in the right direction, if that makes sense. Sometimes a lot of the NFL draft is luck. If you remember the 2021 NFL draft class, Jamar Chase, Micah Parsons, Penei Sewell, Trevor Lawrence, a lot of good players, and the Lions are picking 6. Some mock drafts had Penei Sewell going as high as some early on, number 1. A lot of people thought he would go number 2 to the Jets, and they would take him over Zach Wilson. So the Lions got essentially what a lot of people proclaimed to be as good as the number 2 player, arguably the number 2 player in the draft. Lions got him at pick number 7. That's just the type of luck that you need. And then the next year, Lions not very good, have the luxury of drafting Aiden Hutchinson. Hometown guy from the Detroit area, played his college football at Michigan. A lot of time, so as good as Brad Holmes has been, I think he'll admit too he's had some luck. You can make the argument anything in life that you're good at, that someone's good at, they get a degree of luck. But in the Lions' case, when you're looking at their top 3 players, a lot of it's luck. A lot of it was luck. Amon-Ra St. Brown in the 4th round, that's huge. That's lucky to a degree. That's a good pick, I should say, but it was lucky to a degree. What are the odds that Amon-Ra St. Brown, he was the 15th, 16th wide receiver? Turns out he was arguably the best one in that draft class. At least the second best one to Jamar Chase. I do like looking at these articles on the Lions. Fan Nation, they always have articles. Always have articles just relating all Lions. Talk about the Lions, one of the best in the NFL in run defense. Aiden Hutchinson making the All-NFC North defensive line. Kenny Clark, too, from the Packers as well on that list. This article was interesting. 8 storylines to watch for the Detroit Lions. They didn't talk about this in this article. First, I want to touch on that. Broderick Martin's going to be an interesting guy for the Detroit Lions this year. Broderick Martin, 3rd-round pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, was a rookie this past year. Broderick Martin's got size. They just need him on the field. Said he was a healthy scratch most of the season. But Broderick Martin, especially with DJ Reader being banged up, Broderick Martin is going to be a key guy for the Detroit Lions. They need to keep him on the football field. Storylines to watch for the Lions. Wide receiver 3 competition. Talk about St. Brown will be the top target. Jameson Williams has high upside. Donovan Peoples-Jones, I got to keep an eye on. Traquan Smith, too. Khalif Raymond, Donovan Peoples-Jones. If I'm honest, I don't necessarily love the Lions wide receiver core. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, you can't argue that Amon-Ra St. Brown's a superstar. Donovan Peoples-Jones has showed that he can be in Cleveland. At times he was the wide receiver. For the most part, he's a wide receiver too. Not a lot of touchdowns, but shows he can rack up some yardage. So the Jameson Williams bottom line is playmaking ability. It's just got to be more consistent. So the Lions have some guys at wide receiver. It really boils down to outside of Amon-Ra St. Brown, they just need consistency. Consistency from Jameson Williams, more big plays, more yardage on a game-to-game basis. From Donovan Peoples-Jones, more yardage on a game-to-game basis, consistency. Look more like the guy from the Browns a few years ago that had 800 yards receiving. Traquan Smith, can he give them some catches? Khalif Raymond, they need him. They need him to play his role, be a solid wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. Secondary alignment. New secondary for the lot of moving parts, a lot of changes for the Lions secondary. They drafted Ennis Rakestraw in the second. Are they going to play Rakestraw at safety or corner? They brought in Amik Robertson. Carlton Davis were free agents. Terrion Arnold was their first round pick. Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch, Melifonwu, established guys. That's what people... I always like to simplify things. That's really what people are bottom lining with the Detroit Lions. The Lions are going to be a good team next year. That's just when people bottom line and say, are they a Super Bowl team? Well, it really just depends on how strong the cornerback position is and how... I would say how strong it is and does it complement the safety position well, if that makes sense. I think both can be true. I think the Lions cornerback group could be good, but it could not really help the safety group, if that makes sense. But I think it could be solid, but more so, a lot of times how well the secondary plays is continuity together. So I guess what I'm trying to say, hopefully it comes together for them. Hopefully it's a smooth transition for Arnold, Rakestraw, guys like that. And the hope is at least one of those guys can establish himself as a good outside corner. Arnold, Rakestraw, excuse me. Because the NFL, that's what was really tough about the Lions. The NFL, it's really tough if you don't have at least one good outside corner. The Chiefs last year won the Super Bowl. They had a couple good outside corners. Trent McDuffie quietly a top 5 corner in the NFL. L'Jarius Sneed, a good corner. I know he's no longer with the team, but he was a good player too. Look at the Niners, who lost the Super Bowl. Did not really have a good, strong outside corner. And the Chiefs won the Super Bowl the previous season. Once again, good, strong outside corners. The Rams won the Super Bowl in 2021. They had Jalen Ramsey, a good outside corner. So I think there's some merit behind that you need at least one good outside corner if you want to win a Super Bowl. So case is probably true for the Detroit Lions. I love that people bottom line that. It's not as real. Bottom lining things is not really. It doesn't really make it as fun because you can't really talk and debate and have these arguments as much. But Pro Football Focus said that. I got to give them credit. It really is the bottom line for. They did it. It was in relation to a pessimism argument in the NFL. They did an argument talking about pessimism, and that was the being pessimistic with the Detroit Lions is if the cornerback position doesn't come on, then the Lions are, I wouldn't say big trouble, but they're in trouble in regards to them winning the Super Bowl. And then, all about the rookies in camp. One thing I'm excited to see Hendon Hooker play. I just want to see Hendon Hooker play football. It's been a long time since he's played football. Interesting career, long career in college. Injury in college. Didn't play last year. I have to look that up. Hendon Hooker didn't play last year, right? So that's what I want to see. I want to see Hendon Hooker play football. He's got the arm strength. He's got a live arm. Stands tall in the pocket. Calm feet. Those are all things that stand out with Hendon Hooker. Yeah, it doesn't look like he played last year. Sorry, I should have, before I make statements like that. I just don't remember him getting in last year. I don't know exactly how it went down. Was he in the second half of the season, was he just was a healthy scratch? I'm looking this up. Apologize, guys. If you know, you can feel free to comment this below. So he's activated from the non-football injury list on December 19th. And it doesn't look, this is what, according to Wikipedia, you got to take them with a grain of salt, but still. So basically, my point, I want to see Hendon Hooker play football. Hopefully we'll see that in the preseason action. Sione Vaki. Good football player, right? Going to be a special teamer. Running back, it appears. Played safety, played both ways at Utah. Watch out. I think this is a guy that'll get some not a lot of carries, but I think he'll get some carries, and I think he'll make the most of them. And I think he'll make some people say, oh, right, remember, they drafted that guy. Tough, really good football player out of Utah. This is what a lot of people are talking about with the Detroit Lions. Great expectations. No longer the Lions are the great story. They're expected to be legit contenders. It's a great point. I think a lot of people have made that point, but I think it's a point that you should really hammer home. It is an interesting dynamic when you think about it, though. The Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions are still, Dan Campbell's the type of guy that's always going to remain hungry, but once you got everyone locked in on you, it's a little bit different, especially going through the grind in the NFL. I think that went away last year, I would say. We could argue 2 years ago, especially when the Lions were winning some games late. A lot of times, the NFL teams, people, I guess I should say it this way. People are people. It's like a lot of times in high school, you'd look at an upcoming team you're going to play that you knew probably wasn't very good, and you'd pencil a win. NFL teams don't do that to the extent in like high school, but it's kind of similar. Like, so with the Lions, a lot of NFL teams there's that confidence when you hear that you're going to play in the Lions coming up. They have that confidence that they're probably going to win that. I guess what I'm trying to say, that's gone away, where NFL teams knew they were playing the Lions knew they had the Lions upcoming, and any of the thoughts of that's a guaranteed win. I think a lot of those are gone now. Here's a cool article, 3 ways Jack Campbell can improve in 2024. Improving pass coverage. Consistent play and run game. My worry with Jack Campbell, that's an interesting article because I think Jack Campbell can get better. The question is, will he? It's a question that's going to be answered in the future. But this article outlining ways he can improve really has you asking that question, will he do it? I know that sounds obvious, and it's a question that we're going to get answered. But some of the concern with Jack Campbell coming out of Iowa, he doesn't play reckless enough. And is that something you can fix? Sure. But a lot of times it's a mentality thing. I like what this article's outlining with Jack Campbell, the ways he can improve. But a lot of times, I think these all have to do with pass coverage. Could be schematic. That could be things the coachings work on. But more consistent against the run, I think that's another. I think why they're saying he was inconsistent against the run is just because he doesn't play reckless enough. That's what's weird about Jack Campbell. He's not a non-physical player. He plays physical, but you want from the linebacking position, you wish he would play a little bit more reckless. This was Chris. I got to give Chris. Chris Sims made this point about Jack Campbell, why he was not as big a fan of Jack Campbell as most. Chris Sims always makes his points with safeties and linebackers. It's you have to play reckless. Not that Jack Campbell has hesitation or he plays scared. But if you don't, this goes back to his mentality. If he's not a reckless player now, is he just going to magically become? Is he just magically going to completely change his mentality next year? Or is he going to wait 2 years to change his mentality? Does he not change his mentality? Does he get less aggressive? So time will tell if Jack Campbell will improve, but it certainly is a burning question that Lions fans have. ESPN has Penei Sewell, the number 2 offensive tackle in the NFL. Pro Football Focus ranked him the number 3. Trent Williams is the consensus number 1. Sewell with time, I think, will be the number 1 offensive tackle. I love Penei Sewell. Sewell. I say it both ways. I'm just going to stick with Sewell. Sewell just such a good football player. NFL scouts said the Lions are a legit Super Bowl contender. Lions rumored to trade for Matt Judon. This is one of those I was like, sure, why not? I like Matt Judon. He's a good football player, plays hard. Success in Baltimore, success in New England. I don't think it'll happen just because I believe there's a belief around Marcus Davenport. One article I said Davenport's probably going to range from 5 to 10 sacks. If he's healthy, though, he's shown the ability to get 8.5 sacks. Or was it 8.5, 9 sacks his career high? It all depends. I've touched on that before. I think 9 sacks from Davenport. Even 8 sacks I think will be big. This scout claiming the Lions are Super Bowl contenders, he just made the emphasis that their play calling is a huge plus. Talking about Jameson Williams going to be a big factor this year. Jameson Williams, him and Jack Campbell, two similar guys. It's interesting with both of them, kind of like I was talking about. People are asking the question, are they both going to break out and get better next year? I think for everyone, based on Brad Holmes drafting and the way Lions players keep getting better, like Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sewell and Hutch, based on what we've seen with Lions players, the evidence shows Jameson Williams and Jack Campbell should be better next year, but will they? Will they be better next year? What if they're not? If Jameson Williams and Jack Campbell both aren't, say they both took steps back, I think that could really hurt the Lions. Maybe not really hurt them, but if you knew that both those guys took steps back, then I would have a hard time believing they win the Super Bowl. I guess you could counter that saying, what if other guys really took steps forward? Like Jahmyr Gibbs, he got even better. Terrion Arnold was an absolute stud at corner. Rakestraw was a stud. That would be more reassuring. But knowing that Jameson Williams, I keep saying those two guys because you got to believe that they're, because it's not just me saying this. Most people are buying that Jameson Williams, there's going to be more big plays. There's going to be more consistency. There's going to be less drops, more catches. And more people are saying about Jack Campbell, he should continue to get better. He should continue to be a presence for the Lions in regards to stopping the run, just being that captain of the defense, being better in coverage. A lot of people are saying that, and I think for a lot of people, it's a given these guys are going to get better. But it's easier said than done, right? This article is talking about Jahmyr Gibbs joined historic group during rookie season. Gibbs had 10 carries of 20-plus yards during his rookie campaign, the second most in the NFL. He had the number 2 most rushes of 20-plus yards of any player last year, despite being a rookie and sharing a backfield. Jahmyr Gibbs goes back to talk about bottom lining. Talk about the bottom line of success in the NFL. Creating big plays and limiting big plays. That's what I loved about the Detroit Lions last year. And I didn't necessarily hear Dan Campbell talk about this. The Lions last year were doing what my basic philosophy and a lot of people's basic philosophy to have success in football is run the ball. Montgomery, Gibbs, you got good running backs, and stop the run. If you just do those two things well, it goes a long way. And that's what Jahmyr Gibbs can do. He contributes in that aspect. There's running game. So running the ball, stopping the run, something the Lions did, and then creating big plays. That's what a lot of guys are just preaching in the NFL now, especially with the NFL becoming, even though running the ball is critical, with a lot of teams becoming so pass heavy, creating big plays and limiting big plays. That's more so become the philosophy in the NFL. But the Lions doing it more so in that way, running the ball and stopping the run. But Jahmyr Gibbs creating the big plays. Kelvin Johnson is going to enter the Detroit Lions Ring of Honor. Kelvin Johnson is such a phenomenal wide receiver for the Lions. They did a ranking of all the top players in the Lions. They're 89 through 81. They did 89 through 81. I'll go back. Let's see if pull up some more storylines. The Detroit Lions entering training camp. Here it is. Hendon Hooker's development. How bad was that injury? Because they're talking about struggling throughout OTAs and minicamp. Then it talks about here, Hendon Hooker, he's going to battle with Nate Sudfeld for the backup job. And then this is what I want to see. This is talking about how he could take a majority of the snaps in the preseason. Yeah, overall health. Stephon Gilmore's still a free agent. This article made it sound like they had picked up Gilmore. Kicking competition for the Lions. Parting ways with undrafted rookie James Turner. Previewing the Cowboys as an opponent. Game's a long ways away. So then with the Lions here, this is like a preview of the defensive tackle position. Alim McNeill has been such an excellent fit for the Detroit Lions, a baseball player in college, one of the top defensive tackles coming out a few years ago. Such an excellent pick by the Lions. Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Aiden Hutchinson, those are the guys that are going to get the most talk of Brad Holmes' draft picks. But if there's one guy, if there's one pick that's a little underrated, doesn't get as much buzz, I guess I'll put it this way. The best pick Brad Holmes made outside Aiden Hutchinson, Sewell, St. Brown is Alim McNeill. It could be James. Time will tell. Some would argue it's Jahmyr Gibbs. Maybe it could be Jamison Williams in the long run. But Alim McNeill, defensive tackle is a premium position in the NFL. And the Detroit Lions found a premium player at a premium position. In a premium position, I mean defensive tackle is not talked about in as high regard as edge rusher, quarterback, and left tackle. But it's hard to find even a good defensive tackle, let alone a very good one. And Lee McNeill's a good one, arguably a very good one. I forget Pro Football Focus where they had him ranked. I think he was top 8, top 10 defensive tackle. But he's a good one. So Lee McNeill, good player. I think that's what Brad Holmes was thinking. And if you remember, McNeill was taken in the first draft with Brad Holmes as the GM. And they also took Onwuzurike. Some people believed Onwuzurike was the better of the defensive tackle. Looks like, safe to say at this point, McNeill's the better of the two. Probably safe to say that McNeill's going to be the better of the two. I believe that's what Brad Holmes was thinking when he took both those guys. He's always been a believer building the trenches. He knows the premium of drafting a defensive tackle. He was the guy that drafted Aaron, was part of the regime responsible drafting Aaron Donald. I'm sure his thought process was, we're most likely going to miss on one of these guys, but if we hit on one of them, that's critical because we want to establish a football team that's going to be good on both sides of the line of scrimmage, be a team that can stop the run, and Alim McNeill's that guy. He also brings some pass rush ability too. DJ Reader. Bottom line with DJ Reader, you just got to stay on the football field. If he's on the football field, that's so critical. DJ Reader was in Houston, most recently was Cincinnati. He's an excellent football player. John Kaminsky, too. I like Kaminsky's game. Kaminsky's been one of those guys that's been steady, been on the team for several years now. Levi Onwuzurike. Onwuzurike, that's one thing, that's a common sentence that you say over and over when you're analyzing football players, whether it's the NFL or college. That's really fitting with Levi Onwuzurike, is he's got to stay healthy. He's the epitome of he has to stay healthy. Injuries and a lot of things have slowed him down. Since 2019, you just haven't seen this guy play a lot of football. He opted out in college in 2020. Just hasn't played a lot. I don't think he played at all in the 2021 season. Got 164 snaps last year in 2023. Mekhi Wingo. Mekhi Wingo's a guy I really got my eyes on, not just because he's a rookie, but because Lions, they have depth, but they need depth at the defensive tackle position, especially if Reader can't stay on the field. Reader and Onwuzurike can't stay on the field, so Mekhi Wingo, guy that's shown the ability to play a lot of snaps. He's a team guy. A lot of defensive tackles are team guys. It's a position I have maybe the most respect for of any in the NFL. And Chris Sims and some guys have really hammered this point home. They really are. And it's not just me saying that. They are some of the most unselfish players in the NFL. Kyle Pecco, too. Another guy the Lions got. Broderick Martin. Yeah, Broderick Martin just got to be better. Still a large man. Yeah, that's the bottom line with Broderick Martin. Can plug Plug space. He's a big boy. Was a healthy scratch most of last year. That's what I was talking about a little earlier. Brad Holmes. This is interesting. It says in this article, Brad Holmes saw him as a top 100 player in the 2023 NFL Draft. This is interesting, though. They're projecting that that there's going to be 4 roster spots that appear to be open for interior defensive line. It says maybe 5, but they're going to enter camp with Reeder, McNeil, Kaminsky, Wingo, Onwuzurike. That's interesting. So one of those, it says most likely one of those guys would have to get cut if Broderick Martin makes it, if that makes sense. So Reeder, McNeil, Kaminsky. So if Martin makes it, hypothetically, they'd have to cut probably most likely Kaminsky, Wingo, and Onwuzurike. That's really interesting if you think about it. Because Wingo's a guy that the Lions, I think they know he doesn't. Let's say this is interesting. Let's put it this way. Hypothetically, it's down to Wingo and Onwuzurike for that last interior spot, if you will. Onwuzurike has more upside, but he just has not been able to stay on the field. So you're kind of playing the game of, do we keep Onwuzurike? He may have a higher upside, but the guy doesn't stay on the field. Or Wingo, who, I know Wingo was hurt last year, but if you go back to 2022, he was healthy the whole. I shouldn't say, I don't know this for sure, but I'm pretty sure he was healthy the full season. But Wingo has not had the injury, even though he's had injuries, not to the extreme of Onwuzurike. So do you go with the steady Eddie guy who may not have as high a ceiling, or do you go with Onwuzurike who's got more upside, but has just had a very tough time staying on the field? So could come down to Wingo and Onwuzurike. It may be Broderick Martin that has to get cut, sadly, even though Martin is talks about here. I did not hear this. Brad Holmes saw him as a really good player in that draft. Maybe it's Kaminsky that gets cut, but Kaminsky has made an impact for the Lions for several years now. And Kaminsky stayed on the field. Maybe he's missed a few games. I can't remember, to be honest. I remember him being on the field most of the time, though. So I could pull that up here because I don't want to give you guys false information. But I just remember John Kaminsky being on the field. Kaminsky played 16 games, so I don't know what happened with the other game. I guess. What game did he play? Was he hurt? Was inactive against Minnesota. I don't know. Is there a way to tell? I don't know if there's a way to tell if he was just a healthy scratch. But the bottom line, Kaminsky was healthy all last year, 2022. Played 14 games and was inactive a few, but it looks like just inactive. So Kaminsky's been healthy. So this is going to get real interesting here. So that's the case for Kaminsky. It's the expression they always say in the NFL, sometimes your best ability is your availability. So Kaminsky certainly got availability going for him. Got Chris Smith as well. So quietly a strong defensive interior. If guys are healthy, guys are playing up to their ability, it's a strong unit. Man, really hope DJ Reader stays healthy. This article backs that up. Lions defensive line depth could be the strength of the defense. I think the Lions' depth on defense overall could really be huge. I keep saying the bottom line for the Lions is good cornerback play. But even if they had just solid cornerback play from Arnold, Rakestraw, some of these young guys, Carlton Davis, even if their secondary plays solid, like say Carlton Davis misses some games and Arnold's just solid, but their defensive line's really good, but their defensive line is good and their depth on defense is really shining, I think that could really make up for the secondary not really being good. Lions' second team defense is really strong. Projected starters for the Lions defensive line: Aiden Hutchinson, DJ Reader, Ali McNeil, Marcus Davenport. Still got Josh Paschal, too. I like Josh Paschal. I'll pull up what Josh Paschal did last year. I guess Paschal only played in 12 games. I thought Paschal played in more games than that last year. So he did not play weeks 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Said did not play. Was Paschal hurt those games? Knee injury against the Chiefs. Return to practice. So he had a knee. He missed those weeks with a knee injury. Yeah, they're going to need more games out of Paschal. Only 1 sack. 5 tackles for loss. I thought he had more than 1 sack. I thought he had like 3 or 4. Paschal, a good player, nonetheless, though. Like Paschal coming out of Kentucky. Obviously, Brad Holmes did as well. Depth for the Lions on the offensive line, definitely a question as well. I don't love their depth on the offensive line, but if Mahogany and Manu, some of these rookies, are good for them, then I think you're a little bit more confident with their depth on the offensive line. I think it really depends on how good those guys are, Manu and Christian Mahogany. They do have Colby Sorsdale, too. Added Kevin Zeitler in free agency. Frank Ragnow. Ragnow's just got to stay on the field. Lions offensive line is as good as any in the league. Probably the best offensive line. Best offensive line, in my opinion. It was the best offensive line by Pro Football Focus. A lot of people touting the Lions offensive line the best, with the Eagles losing Jason Kelce. Still likely may have Dan Skipper still. They talk about, too, the depth. A lot of the depth depends on Giovanni Banu, Christian Mahogany. It's cool to see Kelvin Johnson getting some love. It's fun to watch Kelvin Johnson for all those years. Dude was a dominant receiver. Hard to cover. Sometimes they had to put 3 guys on him. Really good football player. Former Georgia Tech Yellow Jacket. Lions open preseason with the Giants, play the Chiefs in the preseason, and they also play the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then open on September 8th with the LA Rams. Lions going to be playing in prime time a little bit more. That's fun. The Houston game will be in prime time. I remember being, as a kid, just begging for the Lions to play on a Monday night or more Sunday nights. So cool. Sunday Night Football, Week 1 against the Rams, 8:20. Week 2, take on the Tampa Bay Bucks. That's a 1 o'clock game, September 15th. Arizona Cardinals at 4 o'clock at Arizona. That's in Week 3. Week 4, they play Seattle at home. That's a Monday nighter. Sunday night against the Texans in Week 10. Thursday night against the Packers in Week 14. Looks like Chicago is the Thanksgiving game, 11:28. Take on the Bears Thanksgiving. Bills December 15th. Bears again in December 22nd. Then the Niners on a Monday night in Week 17. So the Lions, couple Monday night games, couple Sunday night games. That's what happens when you're getting good. You start playing in prime time more. Not a bad home schedule. Rams, Buccaneers, Seahawks, Titans, Jaguars, Bears, Packers, Bills, and Vikings. That would be interesting if the Lions do land Matt Judon. I like Matt Judon. He's had a nice career. Pull up. Said he won't play with his current contract. Seahawks are a four sacks last year. Played just 4 games. Here he is in 2022 with 15 and a half sacks. So when he's healthy, this is a guy that can get you 12, 15 sacks. Good player. 31 years old. From Michigan, played at Grand Valley State. I hope Jared Goff has another good year. That's one thing I worry about a little bit, that Goff, I don't want to jinx it, but you hope Goff doesn't take a step back. Goff just continued to get more and more praise last year, just kept playing better and better. I worry about that because look at Jared Goff in 2018, just kept getting better and better, led the Rams to the Super Bowl. Even the next year followed it up with a pretty decent year, but then slowly just kind of faded away. I hope his work ethic stays strong. I hope he stays locked in. You don't want to necessarily say he got satisfied and a little complacent, but maybe he did. So coming off Jared Goff's best season since that 2018 season, 2022 he finished up pretty strong. Hopefully he's still laser focused and he continues to just get better. Because I used to not be. Jared Goff's a good player. So there's going to be big expectations. It's cool that the fan base is fully in support of Jared Goff. I think that's really cool stuff. Fan base likes chanting his name. Kirby Joseph's got to make an impact this year. Derek Barnes. I want to see Derek Barnes continue to work, be an impact for this team. Derek Barnes made some plays on special teams too. Derek Barnes, some plays on defense from him, plays on special teams. It's going to be critical. Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, the fun combo at running back. Does Jahmyr Gibbs, if he keeps getting better, where does he rank amongst running backs in the NFL? If he continues to build upon what he's doing? Maybe we're talking about him as a top 5, top 3 running back down the road. Lions betting odds for 2024. Fourth best odds to win the Super Bowl. I could argue that should be higher. I think the Lions should be like the second or third best odds to win the Super Bowl. Second best odds to win the NFC. The favorites at plus 500 to win the NFC, plus 150 to win the NFC North, to be the NFC's number 1 seed, plus 600. Third best odds. To make the playoffs, minus 245. Fifth best odds to miss the playoffs, plus 195. Jared Goff to win MVP. I laugh, but I don't think it's necessarily crazy. Plus 2,800. Amon-Ra St. Brown to win MVP. Plus 25,000. There might be some. That would be tough, but I don't. Look, it's harder for a receiver to win that award, but Amon-Ra St. Brown's such a good player. If he has If he has a bigger year than he's had the last couple years, you never know. Jahmyr Gibbs to win Offensive Player of the Year, plus 2,800. Sam Laporta to win Offensive Player of the Year, plus 15,000. Aiden Hutchinson to win Defensive Player of the Year, plus 1,000. Some value there, Aiden Hutchinson. Hutch is considered by Pro Football Focus the 6th best edge rusher. His best season combined with the Lions having a long run like they did, maybe to the NFC Championship or Super Bowl. I don't think that's crazy. Terran Arnold plus 1,200 to be Defensive Rookie of the Year. Plus 20,000 to be Defensive Player of the Year. Dan Campbell to win Coach of the Year, plus 1,500. So interesting stuff as far as betting the Lions. Sam Laporta makes everything easy. Laporta's good, man. He legitimately is good. Top 5 tight end. I think some people have put him as the number 3 tight end behind Kittle and Kelsey. Sure, that's debatable, but I say why not? Why is who is better? Who's better than outside of Kelsey and Laporta? Who honestly is better than Laporta? I guess you could argue Mark Andrews. But even I think Laporta, I would argue, is a better athlete than Mark Andrews. Sure, Mark Andrews has been in the league for several more years. Okay, here it is right here. This was by ESPN. Laporta was ranked 4th. Okay, behind Kelsey Kittle. Kelsey Kittle, I would have higher, but I'll make the case that Laporta should be ahead of Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews is a good player. I'm a fan of Mark Andrews' game, but Laporta, just with everything into consideration and athletic ability, my question would be, is that ranked based? If you're giving, in my opinion, if you're giving Mark Andrews the nod over him, I think a lot of that has to do with him just being him being in the league more years. Just a larger sample size. If you compare the guys, if you're honest talent-wise, there still is a debate. If you're honest talent-wise, Laporta's the better player. By someone who was ranked as high as 3rd. Not sure what outlet that was, but this talks about the Lions investing in first-round picks at the tight end position. I forget Pettigrew was a first-round pick. Ebron Hawkinson, I remember those guys, obviously. Well, I say obviously, but I remember those guys. Laporta, second-round pick. That was questioned because some people didn't think he was the best receiver in the draft, and some people didn't think he was the best. Some people didn't think he was the best tight end in the draft, and let alone the best tight end available where they picked. Look at how that worked out. So I got to wrap with that, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for more. Peace.